Hi, I'm Christina, and today I'm going to talk about all the books I purchased in 2021, and I'm also going to give you my 1 year update on my low buy challenge. So there was a number of reasons why I first started my low buy challenge, mainly because 2020 was the year that I purchased the most books that I'd ever purchased before, and there are a couple of contributing factors for that. One of which is because I started my booktube channel and I wanted to have access to new books to read and review. But the main thing, obviously, that changed in 2020 was that the libraries were closed for a very long period of time, obviously because of coronavirus. So throughout my entire reading life, I have relied almost exclusively on my library for the books that I read. So this was the very first time in my life that I didn't have access to a library. And I know that is a very privileged position to be in, and I'm very, very grateful for my library. My first kind of love of the library is definitely attributed to my mum. So when I was a kid, even when I was very young, like a toddler, we'd go to the library every week and we'd go and look at the books, and we would always take out the maximum, which was 12 books, because you just want to have options. So even when we were looking at like little picture books when I was very little, it was a love that grew from there. So to no longer have access to a library was quite a shock to my system, to be honest. Obviously, there's bigger things going on, but in a small way, that was something that changed. And obviously, that impacted my buying habits of books. I have very, very few books that I actually own. I just have ones from maybe when I was a teenager and ones that I've really, really loved, read so many times. So my actual owned TBR of books that I wanted to read was very, very small. So initially it started quite well. I would haul a number of books in a month and I would read those books in that month. But then I started to have some left over. Maybe I'd start some and I just wasn't in the mood to read that kind of book and I put it down, or I kind of wasn't sure I liked it and then I DNF'd it. And then I found it much harder to DNF a book that I'd actually spent money on and paid for, as opposed to one I just borrowed from the library. Because if I just borrowed it, I thought, oh, it doesn't matter, I've not spent any money on it, it's fine, I can just let it go. But when it's one that I'd physically spent hard-earned cash on, I was like, I have to read it because, you know, I've purchased it. So I have a few books from the 2020 era that I don't know if I do want to read. Maybe they're just not my cup of tea, or it was a genre I was trying and isn't really what I wanted at the time. But there's some that I think I would like to get back to in 2022 and just make a final decision on, do I actually want to read this book, or do I just want to get rid of it right now because I gave it a go and I didn't like it. So I'm going to look into doing that in 2022. I'm going to do my first big unhaul, I think. So I've never actually done an unhaul on this channel. So yeah, that will be good. And it's something I think will definitely be worthwhile. So another thing I would say about books is when you start watching more booktube, you are obviously exposed to so many more books, which is absolutely wonderful. And that is the thing that I love absolutely the most about this kind of community. And there's so many books out there that you never would have heard of, authors that you didn't know existed, genres and subgenres that you had no idea about. So it's really lovely to have all of this exposure and think, yes, I can start reading all of these different things that I would never have known about before. But then I do think on the flip side of that, there is a bit of an over-consumerism problem on booktube too. Some people have so many books, and I just think it's unlikely to maybe even read them in a lifetime. So you kind of have both sides of the same coin there. And I think with the over-consumerism, it does make you feel more inclined to have more books and buy more books that you might not necessarily have really wanted, to be honest, if you just popped into a bookshop by yourself without any other influence. So I do think that's something worth considering, and just to try and be more mindful of the books you are actually bringing into your life, because obviously there are only so many hours in a day, there's only so many days in a week, and there's only so many books you can read in a year in your lifetime. So I'm just wanting to kind of be more mindful about those books that I actually bring into my life. I'm obviously not trying to upset anyone at all. I know that buying books and collecting books and reading books are all completely separate hobbies. So if buying books and you have the means to makes you happy, then I think that's absolutely great. And it made me happy for a while too in 2020. But I think having too many for me would just be absolutely overwhelming, and that's just not the person that I want to be. So yes, I wanted to do a low buy challenge for books, a low buy challenge for clothes, a couple of other categories probably for 2022. So let's just get to the fun bit and actually talk about the books that I did purchase in 2021. So out of the 6 books that I've purchased this year, I've actually only read 3 of them. So that just goes to show that even when I buy a lot fewer books, I still don't necessarily read them all. And I am definitely putting that down to being a mood reader. You just don't necessarily know what you want to read until you pick something up and you're like, oh, this is good. So yeah, that's just one of those things. So I'll talk you through these books. The first ones that I purchased in January, I bought the trilogy of The Ark of a Scythe. Now, I have read the first one. I actually bought the first one in 2020 as a standalone, and then I got really into the series. So I bought it again as a trilogy purely because the trilogy was cheaper than buying the last 2 books separately. So I've given the other one away to the charity shop, so somebody else can enjoy that, and now I have the whole trilogy. So I read The Scythe, the first one, in 2020, and I really liked that one. I thought it was really, really good. I don't read much YA anymore, and it was just absolutely wonderful. I really, really liked it. And then I read Thunderhead this year in 2021, and I really liked that too. I actually thought that book was better than this book. And then obviously the final book, The Toll, I haven't read yet. And I was going to read it straight away, and then I thought, no, give yourself a little bit of time so you can actually read them as 2 separate books rather than just blurring the lines between the 2 of them. And then I started hearing some mixed reviews with some people saying they didn't like it so much. So I need to read it in 2022, definitely. So yes, I've read 2 of the 3 of those. So let's move on to the next book that I purchased, and this was also in January. I purchased The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, and I've read this book. I thought it was absolutely wonderful. Yeah, it's one of my favourite books of 2021. It's definitely my favourite fantasy of 2021. I just thought it was so excellent, and I have a book review video on this one, so I will link that down below just in case you'd like to hear my more detailed thoughts. But honestly, I thought it was really just so lovely, very poignant, very moving, and I thought it was brilliant. Really, really liked it. So then in February, I bought another Matt Haig book. I was in a little bit of a Matt Haig kick after I'd read The Midnight Library, and I purchased The Humans, and I haven't read this one yet, but that was intentional because I wanted to save it for a little while. So when I read a book by an author and I absolutely love it, and I know for sure I definitely want to read another one by them, I normally give it just a little bit of time, just to really really appreciate it. Now, does anybody else do that? I have no idea. But yeah, so I've got this one, and I'm definitely going to read it in 2022. I'm really, really looking forward to it. It's a science fiction, and I just think if I liked it as much as that one, it's going to be absolutely wonderful. So yeah, I've heard so many great things about this book, and I think it's going to be a really good one. It might be a new favourite, which is why I'm kind of saving it for something special. So that's that one. And then in March, I decided I don't just want to do a low buy challenge anymore. I want to kind of challenge myself more and do a complete book buying ban. And I said to myself, I'm going to do a book buying ban for 6 whole months. 6 whole months, no books at all. And I did, which was great. And then I just kind of carried on. So I managed to do my book buying ban for a total of 9 months. And I was thinking, oh, I could do 12 months, that would be great. But then I broke my own book buying ban. So do you want to see the book that I broke it for? So it is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I have heard so much buzz about this book. It seems to be so many people's favourite book of the year, or favourite book of all time, or favourite historical fiction. People just seem to love this book. and I read her newest release, Malibu Rising, this year, and I absolutely loved that book. It was definitely a 5-star read. It's definitely one of my favourite books of 2021, and it's definitely one of my favourite historical fictions of all time. So I just thought I had to give her another go. And this is the one that really stood out to me. So I'm really, really looking forward to reading this one. And I'm actually really pleased that I broke my book buying ban for it. So the reason was because I was buying my dad some books for Christmas. I wanted to buy him some of my favourites to see if he enjoyed them too, so we could chat about them afterwards. And whilst I was placing the order, I only needed like a little bit more money spent to get free delivery, you know, as it is. So I thought, oh, I'm just gonna buy myself a book I fancy. So I had a little look through my wish list, and it's just the one that stood out. It's been standing out for such a long time, and I just like, it has to be done. I have to get this one. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading this one. Definitely going to be reading it in 2022. So that's it. Those are the 6 books that I purchased in 2021. I'd love to know if you're doing a low buy challenge or a no buy challenge, or if you're not doing any of that and you're just buying as many books as you want. I'd love to know what is the best book that you've purchased in 2021, or what is the most beautiful edition that you purchased in 2021. Which one really makes, you know, your heart feel warm and full? For me, I would say it is The Midnight Library, just because it isn't a great edition. I did not know I was getting this one when I purchased it. I didn't really like it when they make the front cover a little bit shorter, but there we go. This is the one I've ended up with. So yeah, this is the book for me out of all of these 6 that I think made me really, really happy. And it was just so heartwarming, heartbreaking. It was so many different feelings. So yes, I thought that one was absolutely wonderful. So in terms of the low buy challenge, am I going to take it into 2022? Absolutely, I am. I think I'm probably, I don't want to put a number on it, but I'm probably going to be aiming for around a dozen to 20. Just because that's 1 book a month, and then, you know, and I'm thinking if charity shops become more accessible again and they're open again and I'm actually going out more, it might be quite nice to buy some more secondhand books, because that's not something I've done in years and years and years. So yes, I think I'm definitely continuing the low buy challenge. We'll probably buy a little bit more than this year, just because I've not bought many this year. That doesn't give me an excuse to buy more next year, but I think 6 is a very low number and I'm really, really proud of it. But it's going to increase. It's not going less than that. So anyway, that's enough rambling about books. If you're doing any other kind of no buy, low buy challenges, I'd love to hear about it. If you're also on a kind of minimalism journey, I'd love to know about that. If you have any thoughts on, you know, consumerism and on booktube, anything at all, I'd love to chat to you about it in the comments. I think it's a really interesting discussion, and I've only touched on it here. There is so much more to say. It's so nuanced and multifaceted that I haven't gone into most of it, obviously. So yeah. So thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, please do like it. And if you'd like to see more of me talking about books, please do subscribe. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.